This is a story about Romans. They are at war with everyone. And it's also a story about dragons. You can never go wrong with a story about dragons. He was a Roman knight, a member of the equestrian class, and he had no intention of letting some barbarian upstarts defeat his beloved Rome. He was tall and well-built, and his armor was polished to a shine. With his new weapons in hand, Sulpicius set off into the forest. He didn't have much time to waste. It shook its head to dislodge the arrow and then charged straight for Sulpicius. The dragon, already weak from its battle with Sulpicius, had no chance against them. Sulpicius proved himself to be a hero on the battlefield, slaying many enemies with his sword and his catapults. His name became known throughout the empire, and people traveled from far and wide just to see him fight. So he ordered his men to arrest the young knight and bring him back to Rome. He should have listened to Maximus and retreated when he had the chance. He had disobeyed orders and had nearly gotten himself killed. He owed his life to the Senate, and he would never forget it. The war was still going on, and he knew that Maximus and his men were in danger. He threw off his luxurious robes and went straight to the barracks to gather his men. He would return to the front and help his comrades, even if it meant sacrificing his own life. His men cheered and followed him out of the city, eager to get back to the fighting. Together, they marched to the north, determined to win the war and bring peace back to Rome. They fought fiercely, but in the end, they were no match for the Roman soldiers. And soon Sulpicius was dragged before the Senate. He had disobeyed orders and in doing so had endangered the lives of his men. In addition, he had killed a Roman citizen, and for that, he would be put to death. But when the senators learned of his bravery in battle, they changed their minds. They pardoned him and awarded him the title of Imperator, the highest honor the Senate could bestow upon a soldier. He was given a crown of gold and a robe of purple, and the people of Rome celebrated him as a hero. But while Sulpicius and the Iron Legion were successful in battle, the same could not be said for the rest of Rome's armies. For every victory they won, there were 2 more defeats. And soon it became clear that Rome was losing the war. Together, they hacked at the beast, cutting its head off and ending its reign of terror once and for all. They had fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Their only hope now was to escape and live to fight another day. But when Sulpicius heard these orders, he refused to follow. He was determined to finish the job he started, no matter what the cost. He begged Maximus to let him stay behind and continue the fight, but the general would not hear of it. He knew that if Sulpicius stayed, he would be killed. And he wasn't about to lose one of his best men over some foolish sense of pride. He ordered Sulpicius to get on his horse and ride away, but the young knight refused. Instead, he drew his sword and prepared to fight. The villagers cheered as the soldiers returned with the dragon's head held high. They had saved them from the clutches of the monster, and now they would save them from the barbarians as well. Thinking quickly, he jumped out of the way as the dragon thundered past. When it was close enough, he drew his sword and sliced at its legs. The dragon screeched as it felt the pain of the cut and tried to stomp on him, crushing him like a bug. But Sulpicius was too quick for it. He dodged the attack and slashed at the dragon again. This time he managed to cut its tail, sending the beast crashing to the ground. Wounded and enraged, the dragon attacked again, but each time it did, Sulpicius was ready for it. He dodged its attacks and stabbed it with his sword until finally the dragon collapsed, defeated. The longer he stayed in the woods, the more likely it was that the dragon would find him and end his quest before it even began. As he pushed deeper and deeper into the trees, the air grew colder and darker. The sun struggled to penetrate the thick canopy above, and the ground was littered with the bones of animals that had been torn apart by the dragon's claws. Suddenly, he heard a low growl that seemed to shake the very earth beneath his feet. Then he saw it. The dragon was huge, its scales shimmering like 1,000 tiny mirrors in the dim light of the forest. Its eyes glowed red-hot, and its breath smelled like brimstone and death. Terrified, but determined to fulfill his mission, Sulpicius took aim with his ballista and fired. He rode a fine warhorse named Falter and wielded a sword that was almost as long as he was. But despite his skill as a swordsman, he knew that in a battle against barbarians, he'd need more than just a blade to cut down his enemies. He was a Roman, after all, and Romans were known for their ingenuity and their ability to use their brains as well as their brawn. So before leaving for the front, he made sure to visit the workshop of a master engineer. There he picked up two small catapults, which he mounted on wheels so they could be easily transported and used to great effect in battle. He then joined up with a group of other volunteers, and together they formed a legion that would come to be known as the Iron Legion. Under the command of the experienced General Titus Claudius Maximus, they set off for the northern provinces, where the barbarians were making their most dangerous incursions. The year is 175 AD, and the Roman Empire is under threat. Barbarian tribes from the north are pouring into the provinces of Dacia and Moesia. To defend the honor of Rome, the Senate has called for volunteers to raise an army and put down this rebellion once and for all. Our story today follows one such volunteer, a man who would become famous throughout the empire for his deeds in battle, Titus Flavius Claudius Sulpicius. When word came that Rome needed men to fight, he dropped everything and headed to the nearest recruiting office. As the Iron Legion traveled, they spread tales of their valor and strength to everyone they met. Villagers told stories of the brave soldiers who came to rescue them from the barbarians around campfires. Merchants sang songs about them in taverns, and children played games, pretending to be the heroes of Rome, but not all were so enthusiastic about the arrival of the Iron Legion. For deep in the forests of the north lived a fearsome dragon that had been terrorizing the locals for years. It breathed fire and devoured entire villages in a single night. Its scales were as hard as iron, and its claws were like hooks made of steel. The villagers begged the legion to slay the beast, but the soldiers laughed at their pleas. How could they possibly fight a dragon? Even the mighty Maximus seemed reluctant to take on such a task. Surely it was a fool's errand. However, young Sulpicius was eager to prove himself, and he volunteered to hunt down the monster and kill it. Maximus saw how determined the young man was, and so he lent him some of the siege engines the army was carrying, including a powerful ballista. The bolt hit the dragon in the chest, but it only made the beast roar in anger. With a mighty roar, the soldiers of the Iron Legion emerged from the trees, their swords drawn. For the next several months, the Iron Legion fought valiantly, pushing the barbarians back and winning many important battles. One day, Maximus gathered his troops and told them that it was time to retreat. Maximus was furious. He knew that if Sulpicius stayed, he would die. And he didn't want to watch that happen, but despite all the glory, Sulpicius knew that he had made a mistake. And that is the end of our story today. Thank you for watching.